Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We're your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Fry, process recovery specialists at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything, as this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal advice.
We are, however, sharing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast include members from the paralysis community sharing their perspective and insight.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the same.
Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of Pathways to Healing. On today's episode, we have on Zack Collie. Zack, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course, yeah. Welcome, Zack. It's been awesome. Been talking to you back and forth. Would you mind just giving us a little bit of a general info about yourself and how you got here and how we kind of connected with you?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Zack, born and raised in Orange County. Growing up, I was a very active kid, always going from one thing to the next. I would consider myself an athlete. I didn't play a lot of mainstream sports though. I surfed, rode dirt bikes, skateboarded. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, so I have 3 younger siblings, and I would say I played the role of the older brother very well, always picking on them. I was the troublemaker in the family. I had a relationship with my parents and my siblings, but it probably wasn't the best because of the decisions I made. I was definitely a defiant one. If my parents told me not to do something, my natural instinct was to do it because I want to know why they wouldn't let me do whatever that thing is they told me I couldn't do. So my mom always says I was more work than my 3 younger siblings put together. But yeah, very active, very physical, always outside doing stuff. I wasn't really, a homebody. Growing up, I liked to just hang out with friends, stay the night at my friends' houses. Not a very academic student, but just went to school because I had to. Yeah, growing up, I had an awesome childhood. And then fast forward to my freshman year of high school. I broke my neck when I was 15 years old, 2 weeks shy of graduating as a freshman. It happened on Memorial Day 2010, which happened to fall on a Monday, which meant I had no school. And so that morning, I got a call from one of my friends, my best friend I grew up with, and he wanted to go to the beach. And so I asked my parents, like, hey, can I go to the beach with my friend? And they told me no. And when I was told no, I was a very persistent person. So I always tried to figure out a way to get my way even when I was denied it. And so my parents didn't want to take me to the beach because of just the holiday. The beach is crowded. It's crazy down there. Parking's hard to get. And they already had plans. They were going to go to this barbecue with another family. And so I convinced my friend to have his mom drop us off. And so I asked my parents if they were willing to drop me off at my friend's house and I could skip the barbecue that they were going to. And eventually they gave in. And so they dropped me off at my friend's house. And I remember driving there. My dad dropped me off and he actually had a conversation with me. It's so crazy. He said, to be careful about diving because I could get a neck injury. And I remember hearing it, but being like, okay, yeah, whatever, Dad. It's not going to happen to me. Being 15 years old, you think you're invincible. And so he told me that as I was hopping out of the car to go into my friend's house. And so I told him I loved him and that I would see him later. And that was the last time that he saw me walking. And so my friend's parents drop us off at Newport Beach, 42nd Street, the beach that I've grown up to going to my entire life. Growing up in Southern California, that's pretty much what you would do during the summer, all summer long.
Yeah.
So we get there, get dropped off. It was kind of like the first time where being 14, 15 years old, where I got to just get dropped off somewhere by myself, going to the beach. So it was like it was a fun experience for me. Right. And we met up with some other friends there and go in the water. We're hanging out all day. Everything's going great. And then we get the call from my friend's mom saying that she's leaving Orange County to come pick us up. So we figured we had another 30, 45 minutes before she was here. And it was kind of like the classic, like, all right, let's go in the water one more time before we have to go home. Mm. And so prior to that, the water was pretty cold that day. And in my head, I was just going to kind of dive into the water, rip off the Band-Aid, just get used to it as quick as possible. So my buddy and I, stand up from the sand, start running towards the water. my feet hit the water. I get this like chill that goes up the back of my spine because of how cold it was. And then I just saw this wave that was coming at me. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to dive in that wave, dive under it. Something I've done hundreds, if not thousands of times at the beach. And so this wave came. I tucked my head down, put my arms out, and just dive headfirst into it. And the next thing I know, I just can't move. I had this weird feeling just go over my body, no pain. I'm still fully conscious, and I knew something was wrong, but didn't know what was going on until I went to try to get up and nothing was happening. And so the first like few seconds or however long it was, I'm kind of just like, okay, well, what's going on? And then my mind flashes back to that conversation my dad had with me in the car, and it clicked instantly. And I'm like, no way. I just freaking broke my neck and I'm paralyzed. And as that's going through my head, on the other side, I knew the type of person I was. I was a prankster. I was always messing around. So in my mind, I figured my friends would look at my body in the water, floating face down, thinking I was just messing around, pranking them. And by the time they realized something serious had happened, I would have inhaled water and drowned. So with all this stuff going through my head, I pretty much accept that I'm going to die that day at 15 years old. And, all of these things just running through my mind, like, I can't believe this is it. I'm only 15 years old. My life hasn't even started and I'm going to drown. I didn't get to tell my parents goodbye, like how much I love them. Like a lot of this, like this perspective shift just started happening through my mind. And the only thing I could do was just hold my breath as long as I could. I don't know how long I was underwater for. Thankfully, I never inhaled water or drowned. But at that moment, I couldn't even turn my head to take a breath of air. And the only thing I had control over was just holding my breath as long as I could. So eventually, I don't know how long it was, I get this weird kind of feeling on my back. This felt like someone just came over and poked me, like this light little like sensation I could feel. And it happened to be my buddy that ran in next to me, and he dove into a wave and got back up. And he saw my body floating face down and went over to me and slapped me on my back. But because I kind of lost feeling, it didn't really hurt me or anything, but I did feel it. So he slaps me and then looks at my body, and there's no physical kind of reaction or flinch or anything that normally would happen when you slap your friend on the back. And so he's like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then he sees my body start flowing back out with the tide. And thankfully, something in his mind clicks, tells him to go over to my body and flip me over. And my buddy, I'm trying to think, when I was a freshman, I was probably 5'8". I wrestled at 170 pounds. And my buddy is probably like 5'6", 135. And so he's a lot smaller than me. He flips me over. And I remember just taking a breath of air, looking straight up into the sun. I can't really see, but I can breathe. So I'm like, okay. And he starts dragging my arms, or he pulls my arms above my head. He's dragging my body out of the water. And I remember like out of the corners of my eye, I could see my arms above my head as he's pulling me out. And, waves are hitting me in the face. I'm trying to breathe, but I'm getting hit in the face with salt water. And as my body starts getting pulled out of the water and onto the sand, my body gets a lot heavier. And so he's dragging me, just trying to get me out of the water while the waves are coming. I remember just being, dragged to the sand, and we get to a point where we're out of the water. I'm safe. And he lets go of my arms. And I'll never forget this image of out of the corner of my eyes, seeing my arms kind of just flop down to the ground to hit the sand. And it was like they weren't attached to my body, but I could see them connected. They were just so heavy, couldn't move them. But I'm like, those are my arms. This is weird. And he comes around and is like looking at me like, all right, dude, like this isn't funny, stop playing around. And I go to try to speak and nothing's coming out. And I'm trying to say like, I can't move. I think I'm paralyzed. And by that time, the other group of friends we were with, they came out of the water. They saw what was going on. So I had this like half circle of friends around me looking at me like what's going on, And I'm just trying to say like, I can't move. I think I'm paralyzed. And when I had dove into the water and I hit that sandbar head first, I bit my tongue. So I had some blood coming out of my mouth, which thankfully when they saw that, like that was their sign that like, okay, something's seriously wrong. So they went and got the lifeguard, and the lifeguard came over And I just kept saying like, I can't move. I can't move anything. And so he went and called 911, and I just kind of laid there in the sand. That moment of my life, thinking back, it's kind of blurry. But I do remember hearing the sounds of the siren, like in the background coming. And it was a weird feeling because I knew they were coming for me, and I could hear them get louder and louder and louder until the paramedics or the EMT were next to me on the sand. They lifted me onto like that stretcher board. They put a neck brace on, and they loaded me up into the ambulance. I remember the smell like a hospital. It was really cold in there. And that was kind of the last thing I remember. And they didn't let my buddy go with me because he wasn't family and he was underage. So he was just left at the beach, just like, what the heck just happened? Like, I think at that moment, like my body was lifeless. I was still kind of conscious, but in his mind, he's like, my best friend's not moving. And so he had to contact my mom to let them know what had happened. And the next thing I remember is I woke up in the hospital a few days later, and they had done the surgery. And I remember waking up, and they had this like tube down my throat that was helping me breathe, and it was like taped to my face, and I couldn't move anything, and I was trying to push it out with my tongue. And this nurse comes in and was like, I'm gonna go get the doctor, tell me you're awake. Doctor comes in and was like, Zach, like, stop trying to push this thing out. If we can take it out, but if you're not able to breathe on your own, we're gonna have to put it back in while you're awake, and it's gonna be extremely uncomfortable. So blink once for yes, twice for no. Blinked once. I wanted to get this thing out of my mouth. And I remember them pulling out this tube that just seemed like it was like not stopping. And I was like, how far is this thing in me, Right. But they ended up pulling it out. Thankfully, I was able to breathe on my own. They put the little like oxygen thing in my nose to help get more oxygen to my brain. And then at that point, the doctors kind of told me what had happened. They brought my parents in. It was the first time I got to see my parents since the accident. And what I was told, because it was on a holiday, Memorial Day, there wasn't like any doctors really like in the hospital to do these like emergency surgeries of like accidents. But I was also told that because of the swelling on my spinal cord, they wanted to wait for a little bit for the swelling to go down. So it kind of like, I guess, worked out. And yeah, that was kind of like my story. I woke up in the hospital as I was diagnosed as a quadriplegic. At that time, I could move nothing below my neck. I had no sensation below my level of injury. Thankfully, a lot of that came back as time goes on. But they came in, they're like, you were in a serious accident. You had spinal cord damage. You were paralyzed from the neck down. And I kind of asked them like what that meant. Like, will I ever walk again? And the doctor was like, can't say for certain, but if I had to say, you probably have a 1% chance of walking again. And so I didn't really believe that. And being 15 years old, I thought like if you break your neck, you die. I didn't know didn't know that's something you could live, after happening. But yeah, I didn't really understand the severity of what it meant to break your neck and be paralyzed.
I think that's a common theme when it comes to the SCI community. Nobody really knows too much about it until it impacts either themselves or somebody they love or somebody they're close to. And then you get to learn all about the entire community and what it means to sustain a spinal cord injury and live that new life. That's a crazy story, and thank you for...
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. It's very descriptive, and I appreciate the way you put that whole story. And it kind of like took me, kind of like in a path of like visualizing you while you're there in that story. That's a good of a way that you told that story. So I appreciate that a lot for you sharing that for us. I know it's very personal to you.
Welcome to the Be Perfect Foundation, a beacon of hope for those living with paralysis. We're a nonprofit organization on a mission to make a difference in the lives of hundreds of fathers, mothers, siblings, and friends. We provide direct financial and emotional aid. From medical necessities to guidance and support, we're here to help individuals on their road to recovery. With nearly $10 million raised and a 100% volunteer staff, your support goes a long way. Visit BePerfectFoundation.org to donate or find out how you can get involved. The Be Perfect Foundation, changing perceptions daily.
It's kind of along what Cody said. We actually just having this conversation today with a couple of the interns, was that they didn't really do a lot of educating for spinal cord injuries in high school. Like, I had no idea what a spinal cord injury was, or a stroke, or a traumatic brain injury, or any neurological disorder as it was. So what was kind of going through your mind when the doctor came into the hospital, you had your surgery, you said you woke up a couple days later when you first got there, and they told you you're quadriplegic and you're paralyzed. What was the first thing that went through your mind once they told you that?
Yeah, it was like, it felt like I was in a nightmare that I wasn't waking up from. My mind, I was like, okay, like this can't be my reality. This is crazy that this happened to me. Like, how could this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? Did I do something to deserve this? I went from being a very independent person to now losing all that independence, to now having to rely on people to help me with all these things. I think that was one of the hardest things for me to really learn how to cope with, was losing all that independence. And I remember laying in the hospital bed, and my dad came in, and it was the first time I had ever seen my dad cry in my entire life. And it was really awkward and uncomfortable, just because I'd never seen my dad in like such a vulnerable state before. But I think that's because he knew the reality of what happened to his son. And for me, I was like, I think it was like my defiant nature, where I was like, okay, yeah, this happened to me, but like, this isn't going to be like,
over it. Yeah,
I'll be good.
Fine.
Like, I think like 2 months later, I was supposed to fly out to New Mexico to visit one of my best friends. So in my mind, I'm like, I'll be good by then.
I'm still going.
You know, I'm still going to go. Like, and then he sat down with me, and I saw him like crying, and I was like, okay, this is weird. And he just kind of had this conversation with me. And then I asked to be alone. And I remember I had this like internal conversation with myself about what was I going to do? What were my options? And I ended up coming to two conclusions. I could either be angry about what happened, and I could give up and quit, you know, because what's a life being paralyzed, living in a body that no longer works, especially being at 15 years old. I felt like my life ended before it even got to begin. So for me, it was easier just to be like, okay, you know what? This is it. This is my life. This sucks. You know, I'm just gonna, I don't know. I don't really know other than just to give up, or I could fight. I could figure things out, even though I don't know how I was going to do that or what life would look like. But I think unintentionally, I was always a fighter. So I chose to move forward and figure things out, even though I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. Ultimately, I was like, I can get bitter, or I can get better.
Still chose to be defiant.
Yep. Still chose to be a little stubborn and defiant.
I love it.
And not believe what the doctors told me. And so I was in ICU at the hospital for I think like 2 weeks. And then after that, they transferred me to a rehab center in Pomona, Casa Colina, where I was there for the next, I think, 3 or 4 months, where I basically learned how to navigate my new life being paralyzed in a wheelchair.
Did you meet anybody at Casa Colina that you're still in contact with?
Yeah, Casa Colina, I met Hal Hardgrave. That was my first introduction to Hal.
Wow.
And I remember him rolling into my room and just talking with me.
I actually didn't know that. That wasn't like a cued question. I was literally just curious, but that's kind of cool.
What year was this, by the way?
This would have been 2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah. So I know he was injured for a few years by then. But at that point, he was coming around to Casa Colina just to talk with newly injured individuals,
right, and
just offer them hope, basically, that, hey, you know what? I know you are grieving right now, but there is life after an injury like this. And I remember him coming in, and I was in the same room that he was in when he was first injured and at Casa Colina.
Really?
Wow.
It was really weird. It was pretty cool. And I met a few other people, Brian Goodwin also.
Okay.
I met Brian Goodwin.
Goody.
And then I met another guy who was also injured just a few years before me. And so after that was hard. That was where I took my very first shower after my injury, 27 days, didn't shower. I still had sand in my hair from the beach that day.
No way.
Really?
And they did, what's it called?
They didn't clean all that like before surgery?
Not my hair. No, I still had sand in my hair, like in my armpits and all this stuff. And
your hair was short at the time, so they didn't have to shave it.
Yeah, they didn't shave it, no. Yeah. But they did basically like a bed shower. So I was laying flat in this bed that had like these little kind of like guards or walls up, and they rolled me in this like big old like shower. It made me think of like a locker room shower like in a high school. I don't know, it was like all these like spouts everywhere, and like they did like a sponge bath. And at the time, it was the first time where I lost my sensation. It was weird. The best way I can describe it was like when like your arm or your leg falls asleep. That numbness, but not the tingling. So then like when water hit me, it almost felt like my body was coated in a layer of mud, but then I could still feel the pressure and the feeling of water, but it was like faint and weird. Like it felt good to take a shower to get clean, but it was also like really just weird
component
and uncomfortable. But I remember having my very first shower. That felt good just to get cleaned up. And then I did my first bowel program, which is not very fun. Yeah. But basically that's part of life after a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
Learning bowel programs, caffing, physical therapy, learning to just sit back up, learning to feed yourself. And that really made me realize all the things that I took for granted. Those little things that ended up being, for me, I think, harder to process than losing my ability to walk.
Was there anything in that moment, ICU, when you first got injured, was there anything that they didn't tell you that was unexpected that you were like, hey, I want everybody else to know this if they get injured? Is there anything that like kind of stood out to you that you wish you knew at that point in time?
I think for me, when someone's paralyzed or gets injured, you see them in a chair. So my mind, like I'm trying to think prior to my injury, when I would see someone in a wheelchair, my mind would be like, oh, they can't walk. It's physical. Right. But when I broke my neck and got paralyzed, it's not only physical, but it's internal. Like I lost the ability for my bladder function, my bowel function. Like
there's stuff you can't see.
There's stuff you can't see that was harder for me to figure out and deal with rather than just losing my ability to walk. Like getting cathed, like I won't get in the details of that, but a lot of people like know what cathing is, and to stick something down your private area as a guy so you can pee on your own, that's like traumatic as well.
Super invasive.
On top of breaking your injury, and then you're dealing with like infections and UTIs, and then you're having someone else help you go to the bathroom and like clean you. It's like not only am I mourning the loss of walking again, but it's also like I just retracted back to being an infant in a 15-year-old body. You know,
entire lifestyle has changed.
Yeah,
and I think you touched on a couple of different components of just the lack of independence and control. And I think one of the reasons Logan asked that question of, was there something that you haven't been told or that you weren't told that you kind of wish you were, is because I think that's what we see a lot from the SCI community is people don't know too much about it until they get involved in it. And then even once they're involved in it and they do have an SCI, there's so much information about how your lifestyle is going to be different that it's not possible for one doctor or even one nurse or resource of any kind to tell you everything that's going to be different, because it's your entire lifestyle. So it's kind of gets into the root of why we wanted to start this podcast, is to be able to bring people on like you who can share information from your experience of like, I went through it and these are the things that I did get to learn, but these are some of the things that I didn't get to learn that I learned maybe through your 15 years of experience that, you can now shed light on and help people who are going through that experience who might be a little newer. Yeah. And one thing that I learned too is that every injury is different, even if it's the same level. I met another quad that was C4, broke his neck actually the exact same way I did, diving into a wave at the beach, hit a sandbar, and he had completely different function than me. So I feel like that kind of gave me hope that, okay, even though maybe this person, like this is the function that they have, but maybe I'll get back something more. I don't know. But I will say, I'm very, very grateful for the fact that over time sensation came back in my body, because that's a big issue when you can't feel. You deal with pressure sores. You can't feel if something's pushing into your skin all day. Just the impact that being able to feel had on my life being in a chair. I can readjust myself if something's uncomfortable. If like my shirt's not tucked down all the way and it's pushing into my back in a position, I can feel it. It's not perfect. It's definitely not like it was prior to my injury, but it's enough for me to be able to be like, you know what, something doesn't feel right. Can you look at that and change it? Or if like my toes are curled in my shoes, I can feel that and have my caregiver to kind of straighten out my toes before he puts my shoes on. And then also over time, I got some bladder function back to where I don't have to get cathed, which to me, that was like, I'm like, I don't know how I could have to cath myself every time I pee. I have friends that do that, quads that do that cath themselves. And it's just gnarly to
think about, So I'm the two biggest things I'm probably grateful for after my injury is the fact that I have sensation back in my body and I can pee on my own and I don't have to cath.
That's awesome.
Huge.
And it's funny because probably some people think or listening, they're like, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal. But I remember actually talking with Hal like early on when I was still in CASA. He came rolling in and was talking with me, and I was like, dude, if you could get like one thing back, what would it be? And in my mind, I was like, I would at least want like my hand function. Like if I could have hands back, dude, my life would be so much easier. I would be so much more independent. And so that was like what I was expecting him to say. And he told me bowel and bladder function. That's what he would want back. But at the time, I didn't understand that yet. And then in my mind, I'm like, dude, who gives a crap about that? Like, I'd rather have like hand function back so I can do all these things.
Right.
And now I'm like 100%, man. If I could have full control over my bowel and bladder, my life would be so much different. A lot of my life and my morning routines revolve around my bowel programs and showering. Right. And it's a pain in the butt a lot of times.
You made a really good point earlier too, where you said that not a lot of people know about those kinds of things. When you see somebody that's paralyzed in a wheelchair, or you see somebody that's paralyzed at all, you don't think about they lost bowel and bladder function. And it's a lot of people that even low level injuries, right? Like L level. We have a client that's L3, L4 and lost bladder function, right? Lost the ability to go on their own. They may even have some sensation to do that. Like you said, everyone's injury is different, but to lose the ability to be able to actually go on your own is insane. So like, I bet that felt really good being able to get that back, and that's awesome. It's a huge milestone. Those are the kind of milestones that we appreciate and we celebrate around here. Those are huge things.
Yeah. It's funny. I'll just say this really quick. When I first realized I was able to start kind of releasing, so normally, they would come and cath me every 4 hours, all throughout the night. They wake you up in the middle of the night every 4 hours and do what they need to do to make sure your bladder is empty. And I think it was like one of my first outings. I went to actually go visit Brian Goodwin, and I was still cathing at the time, but I peed my pants. And I was like, well, that's not good. And so I go back to, to CASA, and, I told them what happened. And then they're like, well, maybe your body is slowly regaining functioning where it's able to release the urine. And so it didn't really sound like a positive thing, but over time it ended up being a good thing to where I was able to switch from cathing to wearing a condom catheter. And who would have thought that peeing my pants would end up being such a
Cool
good thing.
Right.
So,
yeah. Did you get AD at first
a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I would get AD. I still do very minorly, I guess. And that's kind of like my sign is like, okay, I need to pee. As I get like a little bit of like this head feeling, kind of like getting goosebumps on my arms and stuff.
Okay.
But I've been on a condom catheter since Casa Cleana for almost 15 years, and I've rarely ever get UTIs. No problems with that. Thankfully my bladder releases enough to where it doesn't keep the urine in there where it can develop UTIs. But I've been on a condom catheter and a leg bag for years, and
that's awesome.
It has its cons too. But I'm much more thankful to do that than have to cath myself every few hours.
Definitely. And to not get UTIs, I'm sure, is a huge thing too. Huge accomplishment.
Those can take you out. I've heard horrible stories.
Yeah.
You got to get on antibiotics and stuff. And
right.
I've heard a lot of stories of very intense UTIs that can send you to the hospital.
For sure. Yeah. Hear them all the time. I feel like I've had a couple clients even say, I never do not have UTI. Like I just constantly have UTI all the time, no matter what. Yeah. No matter what I do, drink all the water in the world.
Cranberry pills,
cath cleanlessly, and do not, use dirty products when cathing or dirty hands or everything they've ever tried. And it's just, constantly have UTI.
That's just so unfortunate.
Yeah, it's hard things to battle, but it's a good thing that there's some solutions out there, like you've talked about, condom catheters, and then other ways like suprapubic.
Yeah. I always told myself, if for some reason my bladder function stop, I'm going straight to suprapubic.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
definitely. Yeah.
So fast forward us a little bit. You had your experience at Casa Cleana, went through recovery. When in that experience did you decide I'm going to go back to school to A, finish high school, B, I'm sure it was a whole nother conversation with either your parents or just yourself of deciding to go on to further your education. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So after I finished my time at Casa Cleana, they kind of basically, you're there for a few months or as long as insurance will cover it. And then they send you on your way, and you're off to figure out, kind of navigate life on your own. And thankfully my parents' house was a 1-story house. They had just tore up all the carpet, put in tile floors. We had to build a roll-in shower, widen the doorways, kind of do all that stuff. Thankfully, my grandpa was also an architect, so he was able to kind of design a roll-in shower at my parents' house. But went back there. I think a week later, I celebrated my 16th birthday. I did not go back to school my sophomore year. I was fully homeschooled. Junior and senior year, I went back to high school just for my electives and for lunch, so I could still, interact with my friends. That was the biggest thing for me. I wanted to see my friends, and then I would go back home after that, and then I'd have a tutor come to my house, teach me my core classes.
Not to cut you off, but how many of your friends who were with you at the beach that day are you still in contact or close friends with?
Just the one guy that I went with, my best friend.
Like the main one.
So the other ones that met us there were kind of more his friends. We went to separate high schools.
Oh, okay.
So they were people that I kind of knew.
Acquaintance, but not like he was the real friend who was there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
still friends to this day, though?
Quick thing on that. Yeah. After my injury, he actually disappeared for a few years because I think he was processing what happened, in his own ways. So our paths kind of split for a few years, and then a few years later we reconnected and kind of just picked up where we left off. Nice. And he was like one of the best mans at my wedding, and I just went out to Texas last year for his wedding. Wow. He's actually here right now this week, so I'm gonna go see him tomorrow.
Him on.
Yeah. But he's my best friend. I've known him since preschool, and he's like my brother from another mother, basically. He calls my mom, I call his mom, type thing. That's awesome. And so, but speaking of kind of friends, going back to high school and with this injury, man, it really showed me who my real friends were and who friends I thought were my friends, they really weren't. It definitely kind of changed that for me. It was hard to just navigate life after that, going back to high school with, being 15, 16 years old. We're young, we're immature. All my other friends had their priorities and focus, which was mainly girls and partying. And I kind of got left out on a lot of those things just because I wouldn't get invited, and, places that they would go weren't really accessible. So that was probably one of the darker moments of my life, just kind of feeling left out and not a part of a lot of these things.
And I don't think it's really age specific. Something that we've sensed a common theme on this podcast is a lot of people who go through an SCI injury or a traumatic injury of any kind, they a lot of the time say it's easier to make new friends post-injury than to keep friends that you had pre-injury because there's not an expectation of the person that you were before. And people who you make friends with post-injury, they don't have that expectation of, well, you used to do this with me and we used to do this. It's, this is the life I'm living and this is what I'm capable of, and it is what you get, versus a lot of people with that experience beforehand. It's like, yeah, but you used to do this with us, and we used to do this together. And have you kind of noticed that it was easier to make new friends versus trying to keep friends who you had known? And I don't want to pull the life day and you become a new person, but a lot of the times that is the experience, and people do grow a new, I don't want to say personality, but they become a new person after, and they don't have that expectation of the person they were before. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I feel like actually as you were saying that stuff, I was thinking through my head. It's actually really interesting. I still am friends with a few of close guys that I was friends with prior to my injury. But a lot of my new friends were also ones that I met after injury. And so I would say, it is kind of easier to make friends after injury because they didn't really know you prior, and they weren't doing things with you. So they only know the Zack in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so when I went back to high school, junior and senior year, just for electives and lunch. And then I was very adamant about graduating with all my friends. I didn't want to get held back. The school offered that opportunity. Nice. They're like, you can take a year off. What you went through is extremely traumatic. But thankfully I have a very strong mindset, I guess. And I was like, nope, I want to go back as soon as I can. I do not want to get held back. I want to graduate with all my friends. I graduated in 2013. I got a really awesome opportunity that I was kind of talking about with you guys before, where I got to have two of my physical therapists come down with a walker. I stood up in front of my entire graduating class, and they helped me take steps to walk to receive my diploma. One of the coolest things I've ever done, one of the scariest things I've ever done, but I'm so glad I did that. And after high school, I ended up getting a wheelchair scholarship through an organization called Swim with Mike that basically helps injured athletes go to college. I was not an academic student. As long as I got a C and passed, that was good enough for me. I did not plan on ever going to college. So when my injury happened and took away all my physical abilities, I kind of had to switch my focus and really think about my future. I was kind of a go with the flow kind of guy. I only took it day by day. Didn't have like my 5-year plan at that point in my life. And so I was like, you know what? Because I chose to move forward, I need to use my brain more. And so one of that ways was going to college to get a degree to figure out what I was going to do with my life. So thankfully, Swim with Mike was kind of that door for me. And I kind of threw all my eggs in one basket. I applied to the closest 4-year university, which was Cal State Fullerton, and thankfully got accepted. Nice. And so I went to college. Amazing experience. I thrive so much more in college than I did in high school. Got way better grades in college because I feel like I got to learn about things that I was actually interested in. But at that point, I started to realize I kind of limited myself a lot. I applied myself a lot more in college and realized I actually could do this, when prior to that, I was like, I don't think I can. And so I loved college. I grew a lot. I got my degree in human services, which one of my counselors told me to check out. And I took all my elective classes, or all my GEs, I was undeclared, I think, for like 2 years. And then eventually the school was like, dude, you need to declare something because you've taken all your GEs. And so I tested out a few other majors. And eventually one of my counselors was like, you should look into human services. I had never heard about that before. Didn't know what it was. So I took Intro to Human Services and really liked it. And then decided, you know what, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this, but I kind of feel like if I'm going to get a degree in anything, this is what I should do it. And my final semester of my senior year there, I took this summer class called Character and Conflict. And it was run by a part-time professor who was also a part-time therapist. And it was a very small class, like 10 people, but it was a very intimate, kind of personal course where you really focused a lot on yourself. You talked about a lot of difficult things. You had to open up. Thankfully for me, I was already kind of like an open book. I've always been an open book type person where I don't mind talking about like my life and the difficult things that I go through. But they kind of prepared you for it. They're like, you need to, like, this is going to test you. You're going to grow. You're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be hard, but you're going to leave and you're going to come out like a different person. I think that was the first time in my entire life I ever looked forward to going to class. And there was 1 week where the class got canceled and I was pissed off. You know?
So you know you like it.
Yeah. So that I was like, I knew I liked it. And it was a summer class, so it was a much shorter course. Okay. So I was like, I got gypped a week. Like, I'm mad, you know? Yeah. But I had a light bulb moment in that class where I realized I was still struggling, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, what I was going to do with this degree in human services. After my injury, it really changed my perspective on life. It changed my heart. It made me realize if I'm going to move forward, I need to have a purpose bigger than myself. So to me, that was like helping people, but I just didn't know how am I going to help people being paralyzed? And then the light bulb moment for me was, you know, what if I go into counseling or become a therapist? That was the only option I really could think of. But on the other hand, I was like, do I want to listen to people's problems when I'm a quadriplegic and I have to have someone else shower me, see me naked every day, wipe me to clean myself after going to the bathroom, dress me, cut my fingernails, you know, do all this stuff? Like, can I sit across the table from someone and listen to them talk about like the anxiety they're having or the depression they're having or the heartbreak they're going through from a divorce?
And being empathetic.
And being empathetic, right.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's going to be kind of hard. Over time though, like that really changed. And I realized I didn't really have a lot of options as well, other than kind of being a therapist checked mark all those boxes of a way for me to give back and help people, to be independent. I wanted to find a career that I could do independently where I didn't have to rely on other people for help.
You're a business owner in the retail, restaurant, hospitality, or petroleum industry. You have ambitious plans for multi-site remodels, refreshing your brand, and integrating the latest technology, but you need a partner you can trust to bring those visions to life. Enter Apex Imaging Services. With a legacy dating back to 1949, we've been at the forefront of innovation and transformation for over 7 decades. From licensed general contracting in 48 states to cutting-edge tech solutions, we've got you covered. Our services include everything from interior and exterior refreshes, open and closed remodels, and technology integrations, to 3D virtual tours, data analytics, and cloud security for Fortune 500 companies. But it's not just about what we do, it's how we do it. We're dedicated to quality, value, and efficiency. We listen to your needs, tailor solutions to your goals, and deliver results on time and on budget. So whether you're planning your next remodel, seeking to enhance your brand, or embracing the digital age, Apex Imaging Services is your partner for success. Visit apeximagingservices.com to learn more. Apex Imaging Services, your vision, our expertise.
I'm kind of interested because you kept talking about you mentioned not a lot of options in a career path. When did you start YouTube? And did you ever think about that as a potential career path? It's kind of blown up obviously in the last couple of years, and I know you have a pretty big following on that platform. Did you start it before? Did you start it after you decided to come with that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I started my YouTube channel, I think in 2018. So it would have been around the time I was graduating with my bachelor's in human services. So this is before I decided to pursue counseling. And the only reason I started my YouTube channel or wanted to was because people saw me already dressed and ready for the day. Like you guys see me right now. No one knew the work that it goes in to get me to this position, how long it takes me to get up, how long it takes me to go to the bathroom, to shower, to get dressed, to, no one knew what goes on behind the curtain. And with me, kind of like I said, being an open book, I'm like, dude, I will record my morning routine and put it out for the world to see because I want people to know what the heck I have to freaking go through just to get dressed and ready for the day. And at the time, like on YouTube, there wasn't really anything like that yet. There was a
day in the life.
There was a few, quads that kind of would post their stuff, but I'm talking like I'm gonna show as much as I can that YouTube will let me, just until they might block me. So I showed like not me full naked, but like covered and showering and having my mom, shower me and scrub me down, wash my hair, get dressed, put on my leg bag, what a condom catheter is, and just a morning routine. Like it was more like I wanted people to understand what I had to go through just to get up and ready, and also like to educate people because it was more of like I think people didn't know what goes on behind the scenes because they just never had the opportunity to really see anything like that. So I made a morning routine video, posted on YouTube. I think it was like on Mother's Day, and my mom, was my caregiver at the time, so she had to do that. And we had talked about it probably for like a year or two before, like, hey, we just need to record something. And then this day we picked to do it, and then I edited up really like a really cheesy edit, and then posted it on my YouTube channel, and it ended up going viral. Today I think it's got like 17 million views, but at the time, I posted it, got some views, and like day by day it kept going up, and week by week, like a week later it was at like 50,000 views, and I was like, holy crap, like this is cool. And then I got the opportunity where I had enough subscribers and watched minutes to where I could monetize and put ads in my videos where I could kind of start making like a little revenue. So it was more, I transitioned into like, this could be like a little side income, for
so you
me.
never thought of it as like a full career path though?
Never thought of it as a full career path. I did it for a little bit, where I would post videos. It's a lot harder than you think. And at the time, like I didn't have like a videographer, I didn't have an editor. So I was the one like having my mom position the camera, record the footage, then I would have to like upload it on my computer, edit it.
Like self-editing too this whole time?
Yeah. All my videos except for maybe 2 or 3. I had my brother help me out with a few edits.
Okay.
But everything I've edited on my own. And it's cool, but it's not who I am. Like part of me wishes I would have maybe taken it more seriously when my channel was like blowing up. But at the same time, I know like that's just not who I am.
No.
This wasn't your passion?
Not my passion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I post a lot of videos, or I have posted a lot of videos on there just of like a day in the life, how I get dressed, how I feed myself. I've done like adaptive cooking. I went skydiving for my 25th birthday. I got a cool video on that. Just more of just kind of like my life type stuff.
Okay.
And I haven't posted on there recently. But at that time, I think it was meant to happen for that period of my life. And it kind of, I was able to do what I wanted to do with it, where I was able to post videos, just educating people what life is like being a quadriplegic, but also showing that life goes on. Life is not over when you break your neck. You can still live an awesome life. You can still be happy. Just because you break your neck doesn't mean your life is over and there's no hope. And I think for me, that's the message I wanted to give to other people that especially were newly injured, is the hope, because without hope, like, what do you have? Right. And I think I struggled with that a lot early on in my injury, was holding on to hope and not giving up no matter how hard things were for me and how dark times got. But I always had this hope that things would eventually get better. I didn't know what that meant or when it would be, but I think that was the reason why I chose to get better and just to move forward.
I love That's it. Huge. Thank you for sharing that.
I got chills when you're talking about the hope right now too.
I know.
What was the main things that you felt brought you hope after going through that and figuring out, man, this is hard part of my life. I'm dealing with a lot right now. I'm finding hope, but what hope did you find and what kind of things?
And was there like a light bulb moment where it was like,
take us back.
You instantly, you had that change in mindset or perspective of this can be a fulfilling life, or was it a bunch of different experiences that led up to that?
Yeah. I'd say it's like a few things. I don't know if I had a light bulb moment, because I think for me, it was going back to like my stubborn mentality, where when I was just told I was paralyzed, that I would never walk again, that this was my life. I feel like it took time for me to slowly accept the reality of my situation, versus maybe if I was older and I understood more and it just hit me all at once. And I didn't really go into like severe depression, because I think it was over time where I just slowly realized, okay, 5 months have gone by, I'm not better. Okay, a year has gone by, I'm not really that better. And then it was kind of like, okay, you know what, this is a lot more serious than I thought. But for me, like being 15 and just not understanding it, it didn't hit me all at once hard.
Yeah.
And then, so kind of going back to your question, I think my stubborn mentality, where my mind was like, this can't be it. Like this can't be it for me. Like my life, there's got to be more meaning. There's got to be a bigger purpose for my life. I think for me, that was the biggest thing. And that's what helped me to keep going, even though at the time I didn't know what that purpose and meaning was. I think another thing was absolutely like my parents. From day one, they've been absolutely supportive. Like having that support with my family also played, I think, a big role in my motivation and in giving me hope to keep moving forward. And so, and I think a lot of people too that maybe that are watching this, that, don't have an injury. When I got paralyzed, it didn't just affect me. It affected my entire family and my siblings as well. Like my mom became my number one, my primary caregiver. She had to focus a lot more of her time and attention on me, and that it took away time and attention that she could have given to my younger siblings. And like my dad as well. My mom stopped working to be my caregiver. My dad had to provide for a family of 6 all on his own on a single income. So I wasn't the only one that was affected.
And how old were your siblings at the time, if you don't mind me asking?
So I was 15. My younger brother would have been 13. Then my brother after that would have been, he was younger. Oh, I should know this more. He was probably 8. My little sister was like 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's me and my brother. We're 2 years apart. Then there's a big gap. And then I have another younger brother and a sister, and they're 2 years apart.
Gotcha.
But the gap from me to my sister, who's the youngest, is 10 years. So we call them the littles. So the littles, they were really young when it happened. And it's funny because my youngest brother, when he came to visit me in the hospital, and they were joking, they were like, he's like, Zach, since you have metal in your neck now, does that make you a robot? These little cute things. And then my little sister was feeding me one day when she was like 6. She was helping me like get a drink, and she's like, Zach, you better be nice to us now, because we can beat you up. We can beat you up now, So and also, I think, dude, having humor and laughing at these little things, even when you're going through a hard time, I think that for me was a huge thing, was that I was able to laugh and joke.
It's important.
And my family was able to also, laugh and joke about certain things.
Awesome.
I can't tell you how many times we've joked about, like, my my parents were showering me and, see me naked, and they're like, if only other people could just see what's going on right now, it'd be a funny, weird scene.
That's part's the reason why you started the YouTube.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably the backstory of like what made you want to start that. But going back, and I think you finished most of it, but if you wanted to touch on a little bit more of finishing, like what got you into becoming a counselor, and then some other stuff.
Before you get into that, you talked about human services. I just wanted to know, what does that major entail for the most part?
It's even today, I'm like, I don't even know how to fully describe human services.
Yeah.
It's basically like a people helping profession. So if you get a degree in human services, like you can become a teacher, you can go into like nonprofit work, you can go into like mental health work.
Got it.
It's a very broad major. That's why when I started getting close to graduation with it, I'm like, I love this major, but I still don't know what I want to do with it, right? Yeah. So then one of like it's like an umbrella, and under the umbrella, one of the categories is mental health. So that's kind of like, I did a human services with like a track in mental health, and that's where I got the opportunity to take that character and conflict class that really changed my life and kind of put me on the path I am now.
Oh, cool.
And so my senior year of my bachelor's, I again was kind of like, yeah, what am I going to do with this? I don't know. And then I took that class, and then I had that light bulb moment of like, okay, I could be a therapist. I got my brain, I got my voice, and then I also wanted to give other people hope. So I thought it'd be cool. Like, I was like, imagine if I became a therapist with a spinal cord injury in a wheelchair, like just the impact that might have on my clients, like going to see their therapist who's in a wheelchair. And then, my hope was like that they would look at me and be like, man, if this dude can like have a smile on his face and go through what he's going through, then I can go through whatever I'm dealing with. So that was just kind of like a thought in the back of my head. And so I started researching counseling programs, in the area, and came to find out that Cal State Fullerton had a master's in counseling program. Wow. Not only did they have that, but it was an extremely competitive one that they were known for. People would come from all over the country to apply to this program. And I found out that they would get about 400 applications, and they'd only accept about 60 of that. So right away, my mind was like, well, I don't have the best GPA. Chances are I probably won't get into this program, but I really felt like this was kind of my only opportunity. And again, just kind of prayed about it, hope for the best, throw all my eggs in one basket. My mindset was, hey, if I get in, great. This is the path I will go down. If I don't get in, I'll figure it out. And so I wrote a really good personal statement, and I had really good written letters of recommendation. GPA was but I got accepted. So that was kind of like my sign that, okay, this is the path to go down. This is what I'm going to do. And I loved the program. Never in my life, never in a million years would I have thought that I would have gone to college, let alone get a master's degree. My parents would have never guessed that would have been my plan, and I'm the most educated one in my immediate family. And I also think it's really cool because my younger siblings have looked up to me, and I feel like I've had a really positive impact on their life to kind of help push them to do things that they may not have ever done if my injury never happened. And so that's just really cool to still be that older brother that is inspiring to the younger siblings. I feel like that possibly was taken away once my injury happened, because it just felt like in an instant, like my manhood was taken away, my privacy was taken away, dignity was just all out the door, losing all independence so fast. And then having to see, my mom see me naked, it was just so hard and uncomfortable. And then my siblings at some point kind of had to learn how to do some of my care. And I just struggled with a lot of like insecurity and embarrassment. It's like, I'm the older brother. I should be the one that is like protecting and taking care of and providing.
Do you think it made you into a better brother?
Absolutely. My relationship with my parents and my siblings is a complete 180. I'm so great. That's one of the things I will probably say that I am grateful for that this injury did for me, was really show me the value and importance of, my relationship with my family, my siblings. They're like my best friends. I see my parents and them like every week. We do almost, I go over there every weekend for like a barbecue just to see them and hang out. I'm very, very close with my family nowadays.
Okay, so that's immediate family, but I think you're, on the road of starting a different type of family. You are recently married within 2 years?
2 years this October.
2 years this October. Cool. You want to talk a little bit about that whole experience and anything else on that topic that you want?
Welcome to The Perfect Step, a beacon of hope for those living with paralysis. We're not just another recovery program. We're pioneers in exercise-based recovery, transforming lives every day. Our mission is clear: to provide an improved quality of life through intense exercise-based recovery, education, research, and development. We treat conditions such as spinal cord injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and more. What sets us apart? Our clients often experience an improved level of function, sometimes even below their entry level. Imagine the possibilities when exercise is medicine. We're wheelchair-free, focusing on load-bearing activities to enhance function, bone density, muscle mass, sensation, and circulation. And it doesn't stop there. Our clients often reduce their medications and complications. But we're not just a program. We're a community of support. You'll meet peers who understand your journey, along with specialists dedicated to your recovery. Visit theperfectstep.com today and take the first step toward hope, health, and healing. The Perfect Step, where recovery begins.
Topic that you want to share?
Absolutely. So I'll kind of get into dating in a wheelchair. That was a very interesting, just overall experience for me.
It's a very common requested topic, so I
I've
appreciate you
had
for covering
experience.
it.
I'll share some stories.
Please.
So I want to say, after breaking my neck, I didn't date in high school. I struggled a lot with insecurity and just this negative mindset of like, what kind of woman would want to be with a guy in a chair? Like, I can't physically protect her. I can't hold her. I can't open the door for her. I can't do all these things. And I'm like, there's like, that was never like a thought for me. Like, as far as like I didn't think I'd ever find anyone. So then I didn't even go to prom. I was just like too embarrassed. I'm like, I can't even dance. I don't want to ask a girl because I was too afraid of getting rejected. And so then I go to college, and then in college, I think Tinder just like got super popular. And that was like, I feel like that was the first kind of like app of online dating, but it had a bad reputation back then. It was more for hooking up, so it's still kind of bad.
It's still not great.
But for me, that was just like a kind of like an in-between where I could still put myself out there and maybe get matched with women and just start talking to them, rather than them seeing me right away and looking at me and maybe judging me, which a lot of those thoughts I had were absolutely not true. I've done like a lot of dating since then, and I've had like 2 relationships. Like, the girls initiated things with me. Like, I was sitting in class one day, and this like really cute chick came up to me after one of my classes and like gave me this piece of paper and was like, if you ever want to study sometime, like, here's my number. And I'm like, is she flirting with me, or she actually just want to study? And so then I got her number, and then I texted her, and then she came over, and then we dated for a little bit. It didn't work out, but like, that was my first time. It's the first time where like a girl saw me in my chair, and it like didn't impact like the way she thought about me. So that was really cool. And then with online dating, in all my pictures, I would always put them in a chair. Like, I didn't want to like for me, I wanted to be successful. So I felt like if I hid my chair and just rolled up to like a date in a chair, like that would minimize my chances of success. So I always had the fact that I was in a chair in like my first profile picture. In my bio, I said a brief thing about my injury and what happened to me, and that if you have any questions, you can ask me. Because I feel like a lot of people aren't sure like if I'm gonna get offended or like if it's hard for me to talk about that. So I was just very open and upfront about my situation. And so I did like a lot of messaging with women that I would match with, and like slowly that kind of boosted my confidence. And then I switched from Tinder to this other dating app called Bumble, which was cool. I liked Bumble because if you matched with someone, the girl had to send the first message, which to me in my mind was like, okay, if she's sending me the first message, I know she's interested and she's not trying to play around or ghost me, or like, there's a lot of weird people out there too,
Right.
So I like that more as a guy, because I felt like, okay, if she reaches out to me and sends the first message, then she's actually interested.
So more serious.
She's more serious, right? So Bumble was cool. Then, but I never would like had long-term success with that. Eventually stuff would die out, or I would date for a few months, and then it just was like, and at that time, I think my injury matured me in a way where I didn't have the mentality of like hooking up. I was really trying to find someone to like seriously date. And I just, I never felt like I had that feeling with like these girls that I was talking to. So I would kind of, we'd, just move on. And then eventually I tried this dating app called Hinge, which was more for serious dating, I would say, than like Tinder and Bumble. And one morning, I was just on it. I had my profile, and I opened up my app one morning, and I saw that I had like a message, and it was with this like girl. And first thing I did was like, I looked at her profile, and I was like, all right, she's attractive. That's good. And read her profile, swiped through her pictures, responded to her message, and we started talking. And she was very upfront about her situation as well, where she had a kid. And I was kind of like, okay, I don't know if I want to date someone with a kid already, but I'm not going to like close the door right away. And then we just started talking, and we just like really connected. It was really cool. Like, she was very upfront. Like, she was almost kind of like a girl version of me, where she knew what she was looking for. She wouldn't beat around the bush. She was very blunt, which I like. I don't like sugarcoating things. And then my mind was like, you know what? If she's open-minded enough to date a guy in a chair, then I need to be open-minded enough to date a woman that's got a kid. That's fair. So, we started talking for a while. She didn't live that far from me. And one night she came over. It was our first time meeting in person. She came to my apartment, and she brought over Chick-fil-A because we had this conversation about this sauce flavor, this honey barbecue.
Oh, the packet
one that I had never heard about. I would always get the regular barbecue. And she was like, it's better than that. And I was like, no, it's not. So she's like, I'm bringing it over. So our first date was Chick-fil-A at my apartment, where I tried the honey barbecue packet, and it was really, really good. And we sat in my apartment and talked for like 4 hours. And it was honestly the best date I've ever been on in my entire life, where the conversation just flowed naturally the entire time.
Right.
There was no awkward silences. We never ran out of things to talk about.
Didn't have to force anything.
Never didn't have to force anything. It felt super natural. We played this kind of like, it was kind of like this like intimate question card game. And then one of the questions that she pulled was like, describe your first kiss. And she looked at it and looked at me, and then was like, I need to do something. And she stood up and kissed me. And she's like, all right, describe our first kiss. And I was just like speechless. I was like, what just happened? I was still processing what happened. And then it was just so cool. And so after that, man, like we started dating more, and got married like a year and a half later. And we were going to celebrate our 2-year wedding anniversary in October. Wow. And we're expecting our first child together in 3 weeks.
Congratulations.
So,
Sick. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's like, it's really been amazing, the doors that I've opened in my life that have been because of my situation. And I think that's what's really helped me a lot is just seeing the person I've come, looking at all the things that I've accomplished that would have never happened if my injury didn't happen. And it's completely shifted my mindset, my perspective on life. I've now, prior to my injury, no one likes going through hard times. I was the type of person that I would try something for a while, and then I would quit if I wasn't good at it, or if it was hard and uncomfortable, I would not want to do that. But now I view, going through hard times, suffering, as something that helps you grow. And doing things that are outside of your comfort zone, how freaking powerful and amazing that is.
Embrace the suck.
Yes, embrace the suck.
Just snap to that, man.
And now for me, like, my mindset is I purposely put myself out there to do things that I know are going to be a challenge, because that's how you grow.
You gotta love adversity.
Suffering produces perseverance. Hard times make us stronger. I don't think life gets easier. I think we just get stronger as a human being. Definitely. And so I'm a huge advocate in just like pushing myself mentally or physically to do things that are hard, because I know it's just going to make me a better person.
I love that.
Change your character.
Oh my God.
That's huge. We love that. And not to say that we've gone through as much adversity as the next person, and everyone's adversity is so much different than the next, right? You made a really good point earlier about being a counselor. It's like your adversity is different than all the clients or the patients that you see. Like, everyone's different, has a different story. And just because one person's battling with depression or a spinal cord injury or traumatic brain injury doesn't change the fact that it's all adversity. Right. But it sounds like you have just a fantastic mindset, and like, we love that, because that's kind of like a culture we came from at University of Laverne, where it's like, embrace the suck. Adversity is good for you. If you're not hitting adversity, you're doing something wrong. Like, continue to grow from that, and then show yourself and prove to yourself why you can come on top of that. And dude, you're like a living legend of doing that. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of UFC. I love UFC. And
who's your favorite fighter?
Favorite fighter, I'd probably say Justin Gaethje.
Ooh, okay.
I met him. He's super cool. He got a bachelor's in human services.
Hey,
He said,
I
he
didn't
said
know
if he never became a UFC fighter, he would have gone into counseling, which is so funny because he literally beats people up for a living. And he's one of the most baddest people to do it. I think it's so cool. But just a few weeks ago, there was a title fight against Volkanovski, and he won the title back. And in his post-fight speech, he said adversity is a privilege. And
Love
that
it.
just like,
I remember that.
that hit me. I'm like, dude, it really is.
Yeah.
Like, you're lucky to go through adversity. I think you're lucky to suffer because
That's like have you ever heard of Jocko Willink?
Oh yeah,
And his whole good thing.
Yep.
Yep. Good. You know,
you go through a hard time, you're stressed out. Good.
Good. That
You know,
means you're
'cause-
still breathing. You're still getting to experience it, and I think you can take that perspective as far as you want with any type of adversity.
Yeah.
I think that speech in the Adesanya one, where some of
the
the two
Izzy?
that gave me
Yeah.
the biggest chills and just like,
like the Izzy one.
so crazy.
What? Not Derek Lewis?
No.
Yeah, right.
No, you're so honestly like sharing your story is so credible, it's so worthy, and it's so powerful. What you shared about going from the dating apps, figuring out who you were, figuring out what you want first, and then getting into something else, even like getting like kind of working away from like Tinder to Bumble to Hinge, and then meeting somebody that you knew that you wanted to spend your time with, and that it was so much more of a value to you because you thought about, no, this is going to be someone that I want to date for a long time. I'm going to take this person very seriously. What advice, other than, because we've heard a lot of people that have said, just get out there and do it, right? And that's easier said than done, of course, for a lot of people that are going through this process. But what advice do you have for some of those people that are looking at, man, how do I just like take that next step? Like, how do I just bust out of my comfort zone and get a dating app or go out to a restaurant or go out to the bar and go meet somebody? What advice do you have for someone that's dealing with that?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky.
I don't. That's just the first thing that came into my mind because I've been there. I've been very scared to put myself out there. I've been afraid of rejection. I've turned things down out of the fear of being rejected. When, who knows, what if I took that opportunity and then I didn't get rejected, but I just cut myself short because I was too afraid of it. And I think also along those lines, for me personally, when I found my purpose, it made all the suffering worth it. You know, so again, it's easier said than done to find your own purpose. Like that's everyone's own journey. But when you can live in your purpose, man,
it's so crazy to hear like me or to hear you talking about all of these things, because wait until you have a kid and you have that mindset, which is amazing right now. But as somebody who like, I just went through that mindset shift and I thought I had that perspective, and I think I did in a lot of ways, but just wait until you have a kid and wait until you get to experience all the things that are I'm so excited for you, like hearing the way you talk about life and the way you talk about different things, including adversity and lifestyle changes. And I'm very excited. And this is the first day like I've met you and really gotten the chance and opportunity to learn more about you, but like just hearing all of that, I'm so excited for you to become a father. Thanks. Because as somebody who just went through it, like all of the things that you're talking about are so applicable. They're just exaggerated to like the 100-fold of the adversity is going to be something that like you never, I mean, obviously you've had a different like adversity in your life than I have in mine, but having a kid where your whole entire life is now lived for someone else versus living your life for yourself, it takes that whole experience and perspective shift just to the next level. And you're going to be great at it, and I'm so excited for it.
Thank you. I can't wait. I think, you know, like you just said, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, but for me, I need purpose bigger than myself. I know I'm good. I'm okay with my situation. You know, I've accepted it. If I walk again one day, awesome. If I don't walk again, that's okay. I got a wife, I got a family, I'm a husband, I'm a dad. That's my purpose now. And so every day I just move forward one day at a time, and it's great. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for everything that I've been through. You know, a lot of people ask me if I would take that day back. And I've thought about that question so many times. And if I could take that day back, but I have to lose everything that I learned up to this point, I would not. And that's my honest answer. Because I'm so grateful and proud of the person that I've become, of the mindset that this has taught me. It's just made me a better person and put me on a path living a life with purpose bigger than myself. So I'm grateful.
That's what you're doing, man, and you're helping so many people along the way too.
You are.
So
thank you so much for coming on and taking your time and sharing all of your valuable insight with us and all of our listeners. We're very grateful and super excited for you and the future of your family.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed our conversation.
Absolute pleasure, man. Me too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast.
Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and feel free to leave a review by clicking the link in the description below.
If you have any feedback or topics you'd like for us to cover in upcoming episodes, go to our website under the tab Pathways to Healing and fill out that form.
Until then, keep inspiring, stay resilient, and roll on.